Dear President, colleagues, now we are starting the press conference. Speeches will be made by the President of the National Assembly of the Republic of Armenia and the Speaker of the Sejm of Latvia, Madam Miria. Then there will be a chance to have questions. Mr. Simonian. Thank you. Dear colleagues, I want to thank you for visiting the Republic of Armenia. It's an unprecedented event for our country, for our region. Therefore, allow me to say that we do have highest expectations from this event. We had expectations, we continue to have expectations from this event, and therefore I am convinced that everything that we have discussed here and your visit has had its positive impact on the processes that the Republic of Armenia has initiated, that is, peace in the region. And therefore I have to say that your visit has had a great contribution for this purpose. I want to thank you for this. I also want to say, dear journalists, that with our colleagues we have discussed all discussed topics, from the prisoners of war to the peace agreement, to possible solutions and resolutions, possible political support, possible cooperation, and I may say that there's almost not a topic that we would not have touched upon. In this regard, I want to thank my colleagues. I want to thank for the open and sincere conversation. I want to thank for the cooperation. And also, it is very important that we have agreed at the parliamentary level to cooperate and the cooperation to be deepened. And this is a matter of also mutual visits by the friendship groups, discussion of different points at the parliamentary level. And once again, I want to thank you for that to my colleagues. Also, allow me to emphasize that there is an agreement and mutual understanding that we should do exchange of experience over the matters on which we are all facing, the reality that very often is threatening to all of us, and on this, the cooperation that already exists at this format with our friendly countries, the cooperation already exists, but there are many topics and areas where we can have exchange of experience with the Nordic-Baltic states, which will be very useful and important for the Republic of Armenia to establish democracy, for reforms, and also for matters of human rights, freedoms, etc. This is what I had prepared. I will allow my colleagues to speak also, after which you can ask your questions. Thank you very much. Please, thank you. Madam Mieriņa.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is truly a pleasure and joy to visit Armenia and see its hospitality. In the Nordic-Baltic format, for a long time, we had been planning a speaker-level visit to Armenia, and we are glad about the progress we have seen and the discussions we had. The three Baltic states know very well what European integration means after leaving the post-Soviet space. In the early 90s already, we established firm goals to integrate in the EU and NATO, and therefore today we can feel secure and independent. We highly appreciate Armenia's achievements in democratic reforms. we are ready to share our experience. The ongoing reform progress in Armenia regarding human rights and the rule of law is a strong foundation for sustainable development and good governance in the long term. Us, representatives of the Nordic and Baltic parliaments, we are ready to share our support and technical expert knowledge in good governance, election process, gender equality, civil society initiatives, as well as accountability and reporting systems. Other important avenues for interparliamentary cooperation include innovation, digital transformation, renewables, and climate policy. Our countries are strong supporters of a deeper cooperation between the EU and Armenia in all the possible areas. In particular, in visa liberalization dialogue, in promoting trade contacts and fostering political and security dialogue between Armenia and the EU. In discussions in recent days, all 7 of us have expressed firm support for the peace process. Without lasting and stable peace, it is impossible to establish lasting and stable welfare of the state. We want to see a secure and stable South Caucasus region, and we support the initiative by Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan, Crossroads of Peace. The purpose of this initiative is to establish peace through economic cooperation, and we hope for a soon conclusion of an Armenian-Azerbaijani peace treaty. To conclude, from our Armenian friends, I wish to say that moving towards EU does not mean giving up your national values, cultural heritage and identity, but only reinforce them. I wish you the best of luck on your path to Europe. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Yerinian.
Thank you. Questions and answers. The first question, as registered, will be to Radio Free Europe. Datevik Lazarian. Thank you. My question? Please introduce yourself. Radio Free Europe. Datevik Lazarian. My question is, I would like to address to all who are present, but the time is limited, so I will direct my question to the Swedish representative of the parliament. I will repeat myself, saying that Ilham Aliyev of Azerbaijan has an aggressive rhetoric. It's a dictatorship. A head of a dictatorship is using the same vocabulary, the same words, to threaten Armenia like Putin was threatening Ukraine, after which we saw the invasion to Ukraine. I am interested. You, democratic countries, are you concerned by those statements? And how can restraining actions be initiated towards Azerbaijan, be it sanctions or some other influence, in order for them to release the detainees, POWs held in Baku? Maybe your governments, or via your governments, you could maybe raise this issue. How possible do you consider it that democratic countries finally have an influence on a country like Azerbaijan, particularly in order to stop for some countries buying oil and gas from them and to influence them so that they would release the Armenian POWs and detainees? Thank you.
Please, Mr. Forsman.
Thank you very much for the question. First of all, of course I'm concerned. I'm always concerned, and in Sweden we're always concerned when leaders and countries are bullying other leaders and other countries. Diplomacy is a core value to Sweden, and we always think that the diplomatic way should always be the focus to try to solve conflicts and disputes. And I think that that goes for this conflict too. Then I think that there are a lot of leaders around the world that are carefully now watching the Russian war in Ukraine and how that develops and what will be the outcome. I think that the outcome will also influence how other conflicts will be handled in the future. And by that, that is so important, makes it so important that Ukraine is the winner in the end, that Ukraine is given their legal territory back, all of it, and that there is evidently a stop to the way for different attempts to take over parts or all of a country. Because if Ukraine is failing in this, that would also be a go signal for other leaders in the world in other conflicts to continue on that path. And that's a very, very dangerous path, I think. So because of that, I think it's extremely important that we all engage, and we do that in the European Union, for instance, in supporting Ukraine. Sweden is doing it very strongly, and we're going to continue to do that. And the question that arises about sanctions towards this country, it's an interesting suggestion. I'm not up to speed on whether it's been discussed and whether there is different positions from different countries, for instance, in the European Union. I will bring the question back home to the politicians that we have, the members in the parliament, in the Swedish parliament, that are taking part in, for instance, the Foreign Affairs Committee's work and so on. Because, of course, using economic tools is also the other side of the diplomatic coin. So I'm in principle all in favor of that. But to have EU sanctions, well, we also then have to have a unanimous decision in the European Union. And I'm not, to be honest, up to speed about the positions of different countries on this issue then.
Thank you very much. Հաջորդ հարցի համար հերթագրվել է
Next question. News AM. Rosanna Khachaturian. News AM. Rosanna Khachaturian. Allow me to make a comment to what the representative of Sweden said. Just a small comment, maybe you will speak about. When you are speaking about returning the territories of Ukraine, please clarify. Do you have the same readiness towards our region, because Azerbaijan has occupied our territories for some years already? Is there such a readiness to return those territories to Armenia as well? But my main question that I want also to ask to all those present, but maybe I will specify Estonia in particular, and the question is the following. The authorities of Armenia, Nikol Pashinyan, have several times stated that Armenia can be close to the European Union as much as the EU allows us to be. There's an opinion in Armenia that in the EU there is a doubt that Armenian aspirations are not as sincere, because the EU has demanded from Armenia to fully stop relations with Russia. Take into consideration your history. You have had difficult relations with Russia, and last year, if I'm not mistaken, you even had an issue of a territorial claim. If I'm not mistaken, it had to do with the river and the ships' trajectory. You had an issue with Russia also. Anyways, what do you think? If the economy of a country is fully dependent and linked with Russia, will this separation be easy? In your opinion, what does the EU want from Armenia or demand from Armenia in such a situation? Thank you.
Please, Mr. Husar.
Thank you very much for your question. And let me say that this visit finds actually place because of this, that we want to express our support to Armenia's EU aspiration. This is a very clear sign that we see that you've taken this a very difficult and probably long path to Europe, and our very clear statement is that you belong to Europe, and you are making modest steps toward Europe, and we are accepting this, and we are also encouraging this to do this. That means that in our perspectives, we see that that you've chosen a way of a real of a country which really wants to join the democratical and free union, what we know as European Union. And in the other hand, of course, if we are talking about the obstacles here on the way, I would say that our way to the European Union wasn't also easy. It took a lot of time. The very first ideas were in 1995, 1996, and we achieved the goal in 2004. And it came through very difficult negotiations. It came through very difficult reforms, and we really tried to focus on that to be ready for the European Union, to fulfill all the criterias, and really to also to put our own effort into this process. And I think we were very successful here. And therefore, I encourage you. I really encourage you to start with the reforms, to make the steps forward. It could be sometimes difficult, really difficult, but I would say that the end station is really worth of it. And in the end, you can't remember that in some steps it was a difficult process. In the end, you know that actually you achieved your goal. Estonia, actually the living standard in Estonia raised more than 3 times. Starting from 2004, when we entered the European Union, and therefore I think that that this path can't be. It is not a short path. It will take some time, but to have a very clear will and also the courage to do it is the most important in this path. And in this, I really try to is trying and suggesting a courage for you that you have to go through. You have to be very clear in this. And of course, if we are talking about this particular question, whether EU accepts the countries which are in the different unions and also in the tariff unions. Of course not. Of course, if you want to be in EU, you can't be in another union. But this is the decision of your country, not EU. But if we see really this, that you want to be the member, you fulfill all the criteria, you want to be the part of the European family, I don't see an obstacle there. And the visit of the 7 speakers of the NBA format is actually a very good sign for that. Thank you.
Allow me to also speak of this, if I may. First of all, I think it's a mistaken opinion. Apologies for saying this, but it's a Russian narrative that the European Union or any country of the European Union is demanding anything from Armenia in return for anything. It's Armenian choice. It's the choice that Armenia makes and continues to make. I have to say that we have progressed much more than the EU could have suggested. The requirements to the Republic of Armenia and the readiness is much higher than that of the EU, be it for technical reasons, for political reasons. There's no EU member state demanding to cut any links with any country. The opposite. Very often, some countries of the EU are trying to restrain or cautious us from taking many different steps. Therefore, I would like to request in our society, in the world, not to have such an opinion mistaken. As for our links with the Russian Federation economically, yes, it exists, and We do think that once the time comes, we will discuss. We will discuss with all the partners, and we will understand what solutions there might be. At the same time, we are preoccupied in all areas to diversify, and we will continue the process so that from no country at all, regardless which country it may be, not to have a dependency on one country only. Many countries of the EU had huge dependency in the energy sector from the Russian Federation, but the reality is that they gave up something, they opened yet another way and yet another opportunity. When time comes, we'll speak about it with all the parties. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Simonian. The final question. 24 News AM. Hermine Mikhailian. 24 News AM. Hermine Mikhailian. The question is for the speaker from Finland. Armenia is a member of the Eurasian Economic Union, and our external trade predominantly is with those union and Russia. Food security also is ensured from that direction. With the EU, our trade circulation is not even in the second place. We do not have common borders with the EU. How can Armenia join the EU without at least short-term economic damages? Thank you.
Yes, this is a very good question, and this is something that we have been actively discussing for 2 days here. It's clear that the vulnerability of Armenia from the Russian perspective must be decreased in order for Armenia to become a member of the European Union. You must be able to reduce your dependence on Russian energy, on the Russian market for your imports, etc. But as has been pointed out by our Armenian hosts many times, it's a bit difficult to stop trading with Russia or stop buying Russian energy if you don't have any alternatives. So these two processes, integrating with the European market, integrating with European structures on the one hand, and decoupling from this dependence on Russia on the other hand, they must proceed hand in hand. And I can guarantee that we will do everything that we can to help you on that road, to help you implement reforms in your society that make you less dependent on Russia. And I believe we are all more convinced now than we were 2 days ago that there is a clear understanding of this in Armenia, and there is a clear wish to get free of to exit from the Russian economic and military and sphere of influence. You must do your part here, and we will do everything we can to help you.
Yes,
Allow me to speak here as well, make a comment if you do not mind. You are saying that the Republic of Armenia doesn't have a border with the EU. Does the Republic of Armenia have a border with the Russian Federation? Not. Not. That was not an obstacle for Russia to pressure the Republic of Armenia in the previous authorities. Neither did it become a problem for Armenia to become a member of that economic union. At the same time, allow me to make one more comment. It's natural that food security, food items, economic interrelation, that's a determining factor indeed. However, it's not the only thing. We are speaking here about values, value systems, the type of a country and state that we want to have. That's a choice we need to take. It's a choice. Dictatorship, no elections, no rights, no free media. Or we may have a state with challenges, free, partnering, high level of human rights and freedoms. It's just a matter of choice. Our colleagues, my colleague, is saying something very appropriate. It's our choice. And the choice, I think we have already made. And in the future, if we need to revise it, we can do it and reconfirm it with a referendum or further elections. Thank you for the questions. There is a comment, I believe, from my colleague.
My honorable colleague, the Speaker of the Armenian National Assembly, said having no land border with the rest of the European Union is not really an obstacle to a membership. But I believe this is one of the many reasons why it is so crucially important to, in the long term, find a permanent arrangement between Armenia and all its geographic neighbors, and a mutually acceptable solution and normalization of relations with Turkey and Azerbaijan, because that would open entirely new logistical possibilities also for Armenia to integrate with the European markets and the rest of the EU.
And if I may to add, you are not exception. The Ireland also doesn't have the land border with other European Union countries, but it's a member of European Union. You can use this argument in some discussion.
Thank you very much.
Thank you to all. The press conference is over. Thank you.